Zimbabwe cash crisis worse. Talking about Venezuela once again. Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 thing right here called monetary indebtedness. Hey there, I want to take a quick minute to share with you and to shine a little light on what's happening down in Puerto Rico with the ongoing mortgage crisis that happened as a result of the hurricane from last year. And so as of now, there's more people having left the island, leaving a lot of houses abandoned, as well as people who don't actually have income to be able to pay their current mortgages. And so it's becoming a problem for the island there. And it's linked to a lot of retirement pensions here in the United States of America, especially in New Jersey, because one of the companies that oversees the pension system in New Jersey is linked to ongoing situation in Puerto Rico. There's a couple articles here I wanted to share with you in regards to everything happening. And then also, more importantly, give you something to read for yourself. And so I just want to kind of shine a little light on some of these articles that, of course, you have not heard about on the mainstream news. And so here's some things worth taking note of. TheMarketplace.com, and it says, what will happen to all the abandoned homes in Puerto Rico? Next one here is from Caribbean Business. It says, real estate against the ropes. Sector braces for a barrage of taxes. The next article here is from the New York Times, and it says, the next crisis for Puerto Rico, a crush of foreclosures. And somewhat of an older article, but yet still very relevant and give you an idea what's going on down in Puerto Rico. Next one here is from the DS News, and it says, HUD announces $1.5 billion in aid to Puerto Rico. Next one here is from New Jersey Spotlight, and it says, alarm over New Jersey pension system ties to foreclosures in Puerto Rico. And the very last one is from Nonprofit Quarterly, and it says, foreclosure wave looms in Puerto Rico, adding to housing crisis. So just to touch on the first one here, it says, what will happen to all abandoned homes in Puerto Rico? And so it gives a little bit of insight as to what's going on down there. But it says by the end of November of last year, more than 208,000 people made their way from the hurricane-ravaged island of Puerto Rico to Florida. As many as 750,000 people are expected to leave Puerto Rico over the next 4 years. Many of them left and will leave their homes behind. It says the real fallout of the hurricane, which made landfall on September 20, has yet to be determined. After the hurricane passed, banks and the federal government imposed a 3-month moratorium during the foreclosures. Late fees and credit scores reporting was suspended. While banks have ended their moratorium this month, the federal government has extended its moratorium until March. And so it says more than 250,000 people received moratoriums from Bank Popular, Puerto Rico's largest bank. Saw them expire in December and January. Says the bank is now ready to start collecting payments again. It says even if some parts of the island are still without power, thousands of people have lost their jobs, and about 30% of small and medium-sized business are still closed. It says Caribbean Business, real estate against the ropes, sector braces for barrage of taxes. And so here it talks about, it's quite a lengthy article as well, but it gives an idea as to how the housing situation really is unfolding, and the fact that there are people who are actually trying to sell their house, but because of the lack of buyers or just real income or really that much of a housing market, it's hard to really sell their house. So it tells of a story here of how a young lady has a house that's paid off, and it's approximately worth $148,000, but because it's been on the market for a whole year, no one's shown interest. So she sold it for the first bid she had, which was $110,000. And so it says how a lot of people are just basically looking to get out of their houses if they can, just so that they don't take a complete loss. But then it talks about those that actually are behind in their mortgages and how housing sales have down over the last couple of months and whatnot. So it really gives a deeper look into the economy and how bad things are, and the fact that taxes are due. Property taxes are still expected to be paid, and they're going to actually go up. But yet most people don't even have money to take care of their daily living. And so nevertheless, to think about paying taxes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. But if you're interested, feel free to read more on this article. Next one here is from the New York Times. It says the next crisis for Puerto Rico, a crush of foreclosures. It gives more insight into how things are unfolded back at the end of last year. But one thing that was very interesting from this article, it says that now that Puerto Rico is bracing for another blow, a housing meltdown that could far surpass the worst of the foreclosure crisis that devastated Phoenix, Las Vegas, Southern California, and South Florida in the past decade. It says if the current numbers hold, the Puerto Rico is headed for a foreclosure epidemic that could rival what happened in Detroit, where abandoned homes became almost as plentiful as occupied homes. So more insight there. It's quite lengthy as well, but it gives you a great insight as to what's not being reported in the mainstream news. Next article here is from DS News, and it says HUD announces $1.5 billion in aid to Puerto Rico. And give you an idea what's going on there, it says the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced Thursday that it was awarding more than $1.5 billion in aid to help Puerto Rico recover from the damages wrought by the hurricanes last year. It says the funds are being provided through HUD's Community Development Block Grant and are targeted to support long-term recovery of seriously damaged housing and local businesses in Puerto Rico. And so it says Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez said the $1.5 billion in funding that we are announcing originates from the first continuing resolution that we advocated for and approved in Congress last September, out of a total of $7.4 billion that was assigned to HUD and to assist in the aftermath of the natural disaster. So more information there, but the idea that they're going to basically allocate 7.4 in total, but 1.5 as of now, just to basically get infrastructure up and running. Not to mention that it's any aid of any use to the private sector that need the help the most, because those are the ones that are lacking income right now, that's not able to pay for their mortgages, which will lead to more foreclosures and the domino effects from that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they address that. The next one here is from New Jersey Spotlight, and this is alarm over New Jersey pension system ties to foreclosures in Puerto Rico. And so it talks about how 4 months after being crushed by the hurricane, Puerto Rico is bracing for another mortgage crisis. It says that some 1,500 miles away, policymakers for New Jersey's public employee pension system are trying to make sure investments that were launched here years ago don't make the situation worse. And so it says the private equity funds are part of the $77.5 billion pension system substantial alternative investment portfolio, and private equity was a top performer for the system. So the idea that this alternative investment portfolio is linked to the housing market in Puerto Rico. And so based upon how the mortgage crisis unfolds there, New Jersey pension system has a way of profiting from it. And so they're trying to make sure that it doesn't appear like on the surface that they are going to benefit the most from it. But yet the fact that Puerto Rico is even linked to New Jersey pension system lets you know that the New Jersey system will be able to make a profit in some form or fashion, but we'll see how that unfolds. Very last one here is from MPQ. It says foreclosure wave looms in Puerto Rico, adding to housing crisis. And so it's pretty much more of the same information. So that's what's happening in the mainstream news that you're really not hearing much about when it comes to the Puerto Rico crisis, as well as how it's linked to our pension system here. And so I want to encourage you to take some time to read through those articles for yourself so you get a better understanding of what's going on. But at the end of the day, the idea that Puerto Rico is still having problems and it's going to get worse because there's more debt out there than the people's ability to actually repay. So more people are going to leave the island, which is going to leave them strapped for cash, and that means all the pensions that are linked with the mortgage-backed securities and whatnot that I'm sure the banking system is involved with will come to the surface. And when they do come to the surface, it's going to just be a domino effect that leaks into more of the pensions throughout this country that's already suffering, because they decided to invest in, as it said here, alternative investment strategies in the pursuit of chasing interest on the current portfolios that's out there to basically be able to meet obligations for retirees today. So not a well thought out plan, but it's just the best that our politicians and the financial institutions can do to kind of keep a band-aid on this situation. But yet this year, I'm sure we're going to hear more stories about how there's still not enough funds to meet obligations. So they're going to be looking at more ways of gaining interest, as well as to come up with just funds to make today's bill payments. So other than that, I hope all is well. Let me know your thoughts on this situation down in Puerto Rico, as well as the linkage to the pension system. So look forward to you joining me tonight on RTD Live Talk. Thanks.